Welcome to No Room for Phonies. It is late August and we are back, Charles and Pam, with another podcast. I just jumped out of the pool, so if that is how I look. And we're also canning tomato sauce today, which you can consult the website if you want to know how to do it or see some of the pictures of what we've been doing today. And it is hot. And
we had to can 2 weeks earlier than normal because the tomato crop is ready.
Yeah, so if we didn't do it now, we're going to miss it. And we didn't want to miss it. We're quite whatever about making sure we have tomatoes. So welcome to No Room for Phonies, episode 47, Kids and School and Technology. So the cocktail, we have not tried the Frankie because it is Frangelico, Kahlua, Irish cream, and hazelnut. And it is not a hot weather drink.
Not at all.
So, and it has been so hot. And then in September, we have the full moon, which is 2/3 of a cup of cold espresso, a half an ounce of white rum, a half an ounce of Kahlua, a teaspoon of sugar, a half an ounce of cream, and cloves and cinnamon, which sounds like a very nice drink for...
iced coffee.
Yeah, iced coffee.
Yeah.
So we might try that one.
It's like a non-pumpkin spice fall drink.
Yes, non-pumpkin spice. So those are the cocktails. And for book recommendations, I've read 2 books that stood out to me. One is called My Secret Sister by Helen Edwards and Jenny Lee Smith. They are the actual sisters in the story, and then they had someone help them write it. But it's a true story. So it's awesome. Just very interesting.
And I've been rereading Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, so
cool.
It's not a new book.
But the other one I want to recommend is The Winter Wives by Lyndon McIntyre. And our book club is going to have a Zoom on September 30th. And Lyndon McIntyre is going to be actually there.
Cool. Our author series.
Nice. Yeah. So that's kind of fun. So those are 2 really good end of summer reads, quick reads, but great stories. And then for podcasts this time, I found Forbes 5 podcasts that will change how you think. And number 1 was the Revisionist History one by Malcolm Gladwell that I had suggested.
I listened to 2 episodes since last time.
So
they were good.
Good. And then Hidden Brain by Shankar Vedantam.
Oh, I've listened to his a lot.
Okay.
They're very
good. Beyond Finances by Callie and Eric Roberge.
Never heard of them.
Anyway. Entrepreneurs on Fire by John Lee Dumas. What?
I've heard his stuff too.
Okay, and then Akimbo by Seth Godin.
Awesome.
So the 5 podcasts that will change how you think. And then the question of the day, which I'd love to hear, what's the most important thing to do to help prepare your child for the school year ahead? So I'm going to answer that when I come back. Well, I think I'm going to put it on the... on a few of the social media posts.
Oh, that's cool.
So anyway, but if you have ideas on it, please let me know, right? Yeah. So kids, technology, and school. And there is violence in the media. I know that kids are exposed, and there's a lot of video games that are pretty violent. And
streaming TV series that are violent.
So I think it's really important before we get into what happens at school that you as parents are reducing the exposure to media violence for your kids. I don't think it helps anybody to be exposed to that kind of stuff.
Well, it normalizes it.
Yeah.
It makes it normal.
And then if they see violent images, you need to change the impact of the violent images they have seen by watching with them and then decoding and talking about what's the difference between reality and fantasy. And I think you really actually have to go out of your way to talk about that with your kids.
Yeah. Because they won't necessarily bring it up. Just some of your super sensitive kids who pick up on those vibes, but a lot of kids don't.
And then I think you need to locate and explore alternatives to media that solve conflicts with violence, to kind of talk about there's other ways to solve problems, and a true hero doesn't necessarily have to be violent. Mm-hmm. Because we see a lot of violence, I think, in our society, even more so than when our kids were small. And I think you have to talk with other parents about how they manage TV and share tips and support each other, because I think it's really hard. I think there are a lot of children that go to sleep with iPads or sit in cars with iPads.
And parents don't really know what's being watched.
No. A lot of times I don't feel that they do. And I'm not speaking for everyone.
Sometimes you can control the app, so you can make age-appropriate filters. There's all sorts of protections.
But I just feel like violence in the media, and teachers are not showing violence to your kids at school. No. Like, if they are, you need to report them to the Ontario College of Teachers or whatever governing body you have in your place, because kids should not be exposed to violence at school. But I think you also have to get involved in the national debate over media violence and let your voice and your children's voices be heard. Give feedback, positive and negative, to radio stations. We all have heard, I think of the whole Meghan Markle thing, where she, as a young girl, wrote that letter about the role of women and how they're being portrayed, and that blew up into a whole thing. Yeah. So your kids can write letters and lead to some social change and break the cycle of blame, and then start a movement. Like, it really only takes you, like the story of the guy getting up on stage and he's doing this whatever, and then the other guy gets up, and then all of a sudden the whole crowd is doing what they're doing. Yeah. I think it can work. So I felt that I needed to start this whole discussion by really shining a light on media violence, because that is not happening at school. They're not being exposed to media violence.
They're not learning how to bully at school.
No, and they're not learning they're not watching media violence at school. No. So that falls squarely in the parent camp. Yeah. And a society moves forward as individuals take responsibility for defying the norms. And that was that Ergen Habermas that we... From our course. So I think that's an important statement to remake. A society moves forward as individuals take responsibility for defying the norms. So if you teach your kids to to stand up, then they will.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay, so then I think we need to formally teach kids about responsibility and choice, and expect kids to self-regulate. Like, self-regulation became a really big thing sort of in the last few years that I was teaching. It was introduced in kindergarten, but self-regulation is an adult issue as well.
Absolutely.
So
I think our whole society has lost that ability. Well, there's pockets, obviously.
Right, and I think that handling media in school is about kids being responsible, making good choices, and being able to self-regulate. Yeah. Like, that is it. But kids aren't good. They don't come out of the birth canal knowing how to do any of those things. So
no, I guess not.
They have to be formally taught, and I think they need to be...
Well, and I mean, in our days, it was TV, and it was called the boob tube, because you just sat there and stared at it for hours and hours and hours.
And I mean,
so
this
parents
is part
used to do that then, too.
This is an opportunity, with digital citizenship being a thing, then teach kids about responsibility and choice and defying, and self-regulation. Teach them that as part of their school day, as part of their understanding of when you can show responsibility and good choices, and then you can have certain privileges online maybe that other kids can't have. Right. So, and self-regulation is about your relationship with yourself and your ability to exert the effort, self-control, and critical self-assessment to achieve the best possible result in any situation.
So I can hear several adults saying, I don't think a kid is able to do that.
Oh, yeah, they are. For sure. For sure. I mean, not perfectly, and they have to practice it. But let's take it down to its lowest common denominator of 2 kids in kindergarten wanting the same block.
Right.
That's how low it is. So that child has to be able to say, I want that block, he wants that block. So I have to say, well, I don't want to hit him. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to make a choice not to hit him. So how are we going to solve this problem over this block?
Right.
So
like
can we have a block or can we go to the block thing and see if there's another block like this block? Mm-hmm. So it is right from little kids. And if you start... When I was in special ed, we made things called social stories, mm-hmm. where we kind of played out the scenario to the best possible outcome. And I think we should be doing more of that with kids, all kids, with scenarios around technology.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do that because we're teaching culture to our second language learners. We do that scenario work to work through cultural clash.
Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, overcoming fear of failure and distractions and being lazy and pursue achievement, like mm-hmm. pursue success and pursue learning and getting better and going back to all that I've always said about we are one thing today, we are better tomorrow because we're learners, right? Mm-hmm. And kids are more than capable of this. And I like this idea about mindfulness is realizing that we have a choice. If you are in a mindful state, you realize that you have a choice. Yeah. And so we have to keep kids mindful. I think
that a lot of parents or teachers, depending on the adults in their lives, have done a disservice to kids to make them feel that, oh, I'm shy. So then they think, oh, I'm just shy. I can't change that.
No, and that's...
or I worry a lot. So, I can't stop the worrying a lot. That's just who I am. So I think there's a lot of that label that...
And labels,
I know some parents get furious with the school systems for labeling our children as this syndrome and this, but parents are starting the labeling way before the kids get to school.
And there is no reason why kids cannot make responsible choices around technology and self-regulate themselves around technology. If mm-hmm. they are given the opportunity and the right kind of boundaries, they can do it. So, I think, to kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater, if we throw technology out, I actually disagreed with the Doug Ford thing where he said no cell phones in school, because I think we need to, instead of just taking it away, I think we need to teach kids how to manage it. Mm-hmm. Because technology, medical technology saves lives. Communication is easier with technology. New discoveries, security, global access. It's a time saver, right? The ease huge. Of mobility and accessibility, it's cost efficient. But if we haven't come through COVID and realized the importance of technology, then we're crazy. We have to, entertainment and data storage and cloud storage and all that sort of stuff. And kids have to become responsible digital citizens. And from what I observed in classrooms and in schools, we expected digital citizenship to happen without the proper instruction. Mm-hmm. Clear boundaries, formalized lessons.
Right. Explicit
instructions.
Well, I know this wasn't technology, but one of our kids had a hard time consuming sugar, but we taught him to recognize the sensations he had in his body of the buzz.
Yeah.
And then he would know what to do about
Absolutely.
that.
And kids are fully capable of this.
With adults say, if they've been on technology for too long, and the Zoom fatigue is people but before Zoom fatigue, people would say, oh, I played video games for 4 hours and then I couldn't sleep. Well, there's a reason why that happens to your brain.
So they need to become, and you don't want to, think about the kind of bonding we've been able to keep up with grandparents and all those kinds mm-hmm. of things. So we can't, the using of smartwatches and wearables, encouraging kids to be active because my smartwatch is telling me to move, or I'm keeping track of my miles, or my, or I'm running up and down hills, all of that.
Well, those kids that love collecting things, they can start collecting data on things.
And developing mental muscles. There are apps that help kids concentrate and focus.
Yep.
There are apps that help kids with anxiety. the expression of creativity through photos and music and creating movies. Like, I used to try to create movies with my kids a few years ago that now I would be like, okay, take your phone, like, do this, whatever. And obviously you have to check on them, and they can't, like, I've had some terrible things happen in schools with technology. I could tell you I had a fight, fake fight created. I had porn shared. Like, bad things happen, but we have to be prepared for the future, and technology is going to be part of most, if not all, careers in some way. Learning to type, which drives me crazy that our kids did not learn to type properly, but whatever.
But they're fine. They're fast.
To communicate in
their
online
own way.
Like, to navigate, and just if all you have to do is navigate and troubleshoot online.
Yeah.
Like, how many times did I have to support a teacher, me, who didn't know much, to go in and troubleshoot about something that was happening with their technology?
Yeah.
Like, plug it in.
And the other thing is explicit instruction. I teach 20-something-year-olds, and they only know what to do on their phones. When it comes to a computer or a laptop, they're lost. They don't know how to use software necessarily, like word processing and things, because that hasn't been taught in schools for a long time, how to do word processing and format a document. And they're in their 20s.
Yeah, I know.
Because everything is phone driven, which is also a problem.
A problem. But that's where balance, right?
That's where explicit instruction is necessary.
And the other thing is, like, technology does advance educational opportunities, because kids who struggle with writing can use Google Read and Write.
Yeah.
Kids that struggle with reading can have things read to them. Yeah. Like, there's so much, and it is accessible to every child. If your teacher or school is telling you that they can't access like Google Read and Write, then you can, not only can they access it at school, but at home you can
absolutely
get on. And school resources through online libraries. And there's a program that I read about while I was researching some of this stuff called Be My Eyes, where blind people connect with sighted people for assistance with things.
Wow, cool.
So if I was a teacher right now, I would figure out, grade 7 and 8 students, and I would put them in, like, learning and teaching new things. So to me, the important thing about technology is monitoring, protecting, and limiting without dwelling on the sinister side of it. Because there's a sinister side, but there's a sinister side to everything.
Yeah.
So I'll just review that again. It's monitoring, protecting. You have a job to protect. Teachers have a job to protect. School boards, principals, everyone, society has a job to protect kids from the sinister side of technology. Limiting, but not dwelling on that sinister side. So for you, with a kid entering school, here's some things for you to find out. How does your child's teacher handle technology? What's the school's policy on technology? What's the board policy on technology? Read it. Read it with your kids, because every board and every school have a technology policy. And when I was a principal, I wrote it with the parents at Parent Council, my school one.
Yeah.
So they have to have it. Create clear instructions for using technology. You need to be an expert, and you shouldn't be relying on your kids to tell you how to do things. Like, no random searches, no parameters around it. I would go into a classroom sometimes and say, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're searching. Okay, that's a pretty dangerous thing to be doing.
Yeah.
It's just like typing in random words to try to find stuff into Google. Like, I always gave my kids like 4 sites. These are the sites you can look at.
And even if the school IT department sets the safety for age appropriate, the stuff still gets through because the sinister side wants it to.
Yeah. So, and I always had at school a tech team of kids, and those kids were trained to help each other, and they had lunch meetings, but they could help other kids troubleshoot.
Yeah.
And they kept an eye on things, and the other thing is the teacher needs to be getting up and moving around the classroom, or having some kind of, that's a question to ask. How do you monitor technology in the classroom? There's lots of monitoring systems. There is a monitoring system in place where I can look at what every kid, I can sit at my computer and look at what every kid is doing. So that's got to, and I always told kids I would regularly be checking their history and knowing what they were doing. And we did check their history, because
some kids learn how to clear the history, but
they do.
As a parent at home, there are other things
but
you
if
can
I
do
suspected
to,
something, I could call the board and they could get deeper.
Right.
Like, you can't clear everything. That's not possible. So
no, but at home as a parent, there's also software that you can install that digs deeper, even if your kids know how to clear the history and stuff.
Oh, that's
like I pretty
that's
much,
part of the protecting
I stayed on
part.
top of everything, and like I think our kids were like 17 when they finally passed me and savvy.
But when they're in that age bracket where they're still they're pretty formative, right? Yes. And it drove me crazy to see the smart board turned into an overhead projector and the computer into a worksheet.
Well, that's for parents to put pressure on teachers to use the technology.
So, what are the various ways that technology are being used? Like, I would go into this one grade 8 classroom, and literally the smart board, which is an interactive board, was an overhead projector. She was just putting stuff up on it.
And the other thing is, talk with your kids about how they're using technology. Technology shouldn't be about making learning fun. That's not the reason we use technology. There are so many aspects of apps and other technology tools which make learning happen in the brain in a completely new way, which doesn't replicate what we used to do 40 years ago. So yeah, you can have a spelling test or crossword puzzles online. Wow, that's just glamorizing. It's a worksheet. So look out for worksheets that are disguised as technology.
And I mean, there's all kinds of tools and apps. Like, you use all kinds, like Flipgrid and...
Yeah, and there's a lot of them now because of COVID, but even before that, have become safer and safer with identity protection and anonymity. Thank you. and scrambling of information, stuff like that. So there's Flipgrid, where you can leave video messages for each other, so students can make group projects, group videos, or individual ones, and leave feedback. There's Floop is a place where they can take a picture of any drawing they've done, any handwriting work, and upload it, and then you can click on the parts that you want to comment about, give feedback. You can draw on it. You can type feedback. It's a very, very robust feedback software and it's developed by teachers, so they really know what they were doing.
Yeah. So being part of a online community, I think, like, instead of Restaurants of Niagara, maybe we should have digital citizenship for parents. Like, people getting together.
Facebook groups?
Yes, Facebook groups or any kind of, right? So that parents have a place to go, my kid wants to do this. What do you think? And teach digital. And I know that Facebook can get very nasty. You let your child do that. That's terrible, and blah, blah, blah. But I think if you take digital citizenship and relate it to actual social behavior and citizenship, I think it's a lot easier for kids to relate to. We are kind in person. We are kind online. We are, and kids do not understand the fact that they cannot hide online. They do not. I mean, the biggest one that was when it was a grade 7 boy who sent a very nude picture of himself to a bunch of girls, and the police came because that's actually possession and distribution of pornography, and took all these phones. Well, I deleted it. You didn't delete it from the ICE investigation unit.
Yeah. Like,
you didn't delete it from them.
Yeah, but the cell phone companies still had a record of it.
And the one kid did not want to. I deleted it. I'm not giving you my phone. I'm not giving you my phone. I said to the police officer, you have to take her phone. Like, you have to show her that this is not, it's on there. Whether you think you've deleted it or not, it's on there. And kids just don't I don't know. So the more you talk about that, oh, you sure you want to put that up online? Because that is there. Mm-hmm. And
I remember our kids made just a silly video in grade 9, whatever, and their friends wanted to post it online. I said, in 3 years, I don't think you're going to want to remember this being online, and it's not going to go away. And
they didn't.
They didn't.
Yeah. And I think one of the lines that I have to say, care for technology starts at home, right? So if kids come to school with the skills they need to keep their iPads and phones and computers or laptops or whatever they have in good condition and safe, and not be banging them around and storing them properly. It's a lot easier for teachers to deal with that. So I think we all have to remember that we have to model the ideal behavior, and kids need
teach
to
it explicitly.
Yeah, and if you should have guidelines written at home the same as teachers have guidelines written at school, and kids should be fully aware there are no computers in your bedroom until you're, whatever age you are. There are no whatever, like there's an hour of screen time. Most families have guidelines, right? And for us, when our kids were young, we wouldn't allow any first-person violent games. Yeah. Like, where the actual person looked real.
Else.
So
and who they shot looked real.
Yes. And I always said to teachers, and this is something to watch out for as parents, that never punish the whole class for one or a group of students' behaviors. Yeah. Everybody's losing computers because blah. And teachers should be creating consequences that don't disrupt the kids' ability to do their work.
Right.
So, if they have to write something out or, do something different because they have lost their computer privileges for a day, and consequences really need to fit the they need to make sense.
Losing the computer would have to do with something that happened on the computer.
Yes. Like if you're on a site that you're not supposed to be on. The other thing is you can shut down the ability to have internet and still let them do word processing.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of things that you can do. And I think for me, it's all about balance. Technology is everywhere. And to me, it's like any other pervasive issue or thing. You have to manage it in a positive way. And if you're not prepared to do that, so it's that same story that I was saying. Instead of pulling the drowning people out of the river, head upstream and make sure that
not falling in.
Their success or that they know how to swim.
Or that.
Right? Or that they have a life raft, or that they know what to do, instead of just waiting till they're down at the other end of the river and pulling them out because technology is so terrible and get my kids this and my kids that, when you've spent no time putting the things in place that they need in order to be successful. I go back to the one that we did on success and confidence. If kids have the boundaries in place and they know what to expect and things are in place and they are given some highly controlled, successful experiences with technology, then it's gonna breed success. Yep. Success does breed success. So I don't know if you have anything else to add. Those are my ideas.
I think I added here. Sprinkled in.
For September the 15th, I'm going to talk about what information should you get from your child's teacher daily, weekly, and monthly.
Very
so
important.
That is important, especially for the beginning of the year. And September 30th, I'm going to do what is differentiation in the classroom and what does it look like. Personalization of life for kids and learning for kids. October 15th, I'm going to do strategies that build community in schools and what should all schools promote, that kind of thing. And then
bigger picture.
for the last one, October 30th, and then we're going to get into some relationship stuff again, like truth and shame and how that impacts relationships. But October 30th, I'm going to do something about assessment, reading your child's report card, understanding what's happening, knowing what to expect. A little bit on, I'm going to talk about individual education plans when I talk about differentiation. So I hope that I've kind of covered we have kind of covered a bunch of...
And if any topics come up that if you think of something we haven't talked about and you want some tips or advice,
you can always email us. No one seems to ever do that, but you can always email. Don't forget to go online at NoRoomForPhonies.com, Phonies.com. There's tons of stuff on there. Crochet patterns, knitting patterns, recipes, inspirational things, an opportunity to email.
There's and the podcast.
And the podcasts are all there. So, take the time to go on the website and have a look and see if there's something. I'm sure there would be something. There's gardening stuff. We're going to be videotaping and taking pictures of a big gardening project in this household this fall. So we are turning the left side of our front lawn into a big garden. So we're going to put that online and the process and what we do. So
thank you, road construction company.
Yeah, they kind of didn't put good
the sod. Didn't take.
The sod was terrible, so we decided. So that's it for episode 47, Kids and School and Technology. Enjoy the last bit of summer, and good luck on for your kids and you and their start up to school. And I'm going to be posting on social media some important things to help prepare your kid for school and the school year ahead. So thanks for joining us on No Room for Phonies, Kids and School and